Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Friday, June 13th. It's Friday 13th, and today's topic will be called Drawing Freely. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. So yeah, let's just get started. So yesterday's video was called Drawing on Bristol Paper, and I'll post a link to it. It's going to turn into kind of a series, and I'll put it into the basics playlist. I spent 30 minutes just making up this character right here based upon what I sketched yesterday after yesterday's video. Today's called Drawing Freely, and just to begin with, I'm going to just draw freely and just kind of talk about that. So in a way, it's going to be in the basics, but it's also in the idea of artist life. I have a playlist called that. So I'm just going to draw freely to warm up. So I did this because, and I'm going to go over a lot of the stuff that I've gone over, and it'll be called the basics because, or it'll be in that playlist, because first, it's drawing. A sketch is a type of drawing. And so you could say that I'm sketching. Or I could say that. I consider this like sketching. And also kind of like doodling, because I didn't have an idea of what I was going to sketch. So I think it's good to doodle, to think about that. It's good to play around with it, kind of like this. Not really knowing exactly what you're going to doodle, which is why it's a doodle, because you don't really know. But now it's like starting to be something, and so then you can start to sketch. And part of that, like what makes it like a sketch, is the looseness of it. It's not meant to be finished, and it can be like a preliminary for something else. Kind of like this, where it's done in a sketchy way, which is loose. That's like the main thing, is that it's loose. But it can be deliberate also. It can be, meaning you can just put down a line. So maybe like this. That's sketchy, or like a sketch of a mountain, but it's done in basically like one line. Now since the topic is drawing freely, so yesterday there was this study. So in the AOS triad, as I call it, it's just a way of conceptualizing it, but it's this idea of like imagination. So I drew this from imagination, but it started with a study. And the style is pen and ink, specifically a Papermate felt tip pen, medium point, on like Bristol vellum paper, which I went into detail yesterday. And that's why I went into detail about it, not only because I like talking about the materials and the tools, but also like that's why. You can draw something from imagination. You can draw something by studying it and use certain tools to have like a certain style. Like notice that no matter what I draw, it's going to look a certain way. And the technique is the pen and ink technique. The question might be, well, what's the difference between study and like technique? Well, the technique is, to study a technique is stuff like this, where let's say that I was looking at a mountain, but I'm not. I'm just like making this up. So that's like imagination. But let's say that at some point I had done like studies of mountains and came up with like this kind of thing. So that's one way to draw mountains, in other words. But you can make that up, but it was from like studies. And by study, I mean you could just be looking at mountains, or you could look at it a little bit and then just kind of come up, like you could doodle something and it may end up looking like a mountain. It's like, that's what I mean. And then to study like the technique. So the technique is pen and ink. Also, cross-hatching is a technique. So this is like hatching right here, meaning just using lines to show like light and dark. Like this. So that's hatching. The study could be if you see someone doing this, because I didn't just create that, like I saw this technique and so I practiced it. That's the study aspect of it. I looked at what they did and I did it and just kept doing it until I understood, like, okay, like that's how that works. Like if I want to show light and dark, I can do that. As far as like the technique and the study aspect of it, if I just hatch it this way, just don't cross hatch it, because if you come over here, you'll see that there's more of a cross hatch. So I started hatching like this, and then when you cross hatch, when you go over it again, kind of like, let me look at this right here, this. So that's a cross-hatching technique, but what you can do is you can study like the effect of it. So you see that it got a little bit darker and it looks a little bit more detailed, and then you can like overwork it if you overdo it. And there's an element of mark making. So that's why it's the basics. So it can still be a sketch, but done definite. That's what I mean by definite. Just sketch it. You can do more scribbly kind of sketching. So that could be kind of like this, where you can have like kind of a loose script and then just scribble something. This is scribbling. And scribbling can be used for texture or like doodling or something. So that's like scribbling. So this is mark making. So that's definitely like the basics of the basics, like the most basic thing. And then I'm using this to sort of explain and conceptualize things. So you have imagination. So all of this was from imagination, except originally it was started with this like study of a sword. You could do more stuff. You could like have or maybe like a different version of the sword. So I don't know, like let's just draw a line. So this is like mark making with the idea of sketch or drawing freely, because again, sketching is just like a form of drawing. So you could just go like this and just keep kind of a loose grip. That way it can be wobbly and not look too look too bad. And it can help you with, I mean, you can always go back in and just do this. But yeah, it can help you with drawing a little bit more freely. But yeah, it would be sketchy because I wouldn't call that like the final drawing. And you could go back in and detail it. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I'm going to go off of like the design, because that's also its own thing. It's like the design of it. Which is where study comes in. Like you can look at something, but then after that you can use your own drawing as like the idea. But it all breaks down into simple shapes. That's like the main thing. So you've got spheres are pretty easy. So part of why I wanted to call this drawing freely is because after I did this, then there's this thing where like, what are you going to draw next? Like I had this, so I just doodled some stuff. I personally like that. I mean, especially if you're just like, this is basically my new sketchbook, is this Bristol paper. Like I feel like speaking like as an artist to maybe artists who I would think predominantly who want to draw, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced or whatever, then I feel like this is probably the most sort of valuable information. It's this idea of like how to do the work and practice and get better. So if you have like the sketch, so this is a sketch right here. It's not a doodle. This is more like a doodle right here. Like that's doodling and scribbling. But this is a sketch of this sort. Then you can go in and tighten it up. It would still be a sketch, but you can start to tighten up things. So you can, if you want, you don't have to use a straight edge. But it's just an example. And you can just use it for parts of it. So yeah, you have your sketch, and it's good to, number one, sort of have a way of measuring your time. I think that once you start to feel like you're getting a little kind of stuck, then it's good to step away from it. So an example of that is I spent 30 minutes and I got this, and I sort of had to unplug from it, like make myself sort of unplug from it, because now that I'm looking at it, I'm okay with it. But when you're working on it, it's good to kind of have a way to step away from it so that you don't overwork it, because yeah, it's just like a different mindset. So the other thing is kind of like the difference between stuff. You can have random things like this and it looks okay because of like the artisticness of it, like the idea behind it, like it works because it's like a language. Just like in this video, I'm kind of talking about a bunch of different things, but kind of bringing it around. So it's just like this, it's sort of brought together by the fact that the technique is similar. So when you have a sketch, then the next thing could be the idea of like light and dark, and that's kind of what this is. So I established like light and dark. So I'll use this doodle as an example. So I just doodled something. It could have been anything, but it looks kind of like it could be foliage or something, but it's just scribbles. The light and dark could be more scribbles. And that would kind of look like there's some shadow, but like not that dark. And also it has to do with value, like it looks further back, and this looks like it's has more focus. So that's one way to deal with that. Same with like right here, let's establish some like light and dark. So for example, if I were to go like this, I'm establishing the light and dark of these mountains. So that's how you can go from even like doodling. I like to doodle mountains because they're pretty fun and kind of relaxing to sketch and doodle. Because the doodling part of it has to do with this. like that's doodling. And at first, like, you could say, well, maybe this is a tree, which maybe it is. Or maybe it could be like this, like turn it into a wall or like rocks or whatever. And that's what doodling is. It can be something, but it's done with marks, like mark making. And then you can just kind of go like this, just sketch something. So now that it looks like something, then you can sketch something. And then the next thing would be establishing like the light and dark, which is what that was. Like that. So the doodle turned into, it could have been like a tree, but it turned into some kind of rock. This established like the light and dark. So notice how like this looks like shading, or it is shading, but like light is coming here, and then that could be like light. So notice that this is all made up, but it's based upon certain it's based upon principles of vision, of you can tell that it's light and dark and stuff like that. And if you do this incorrectly, quote unquote, then that's the artistry of it. Like this isn't a real scene. This is just like made up, but it's based upon vision and language. So that's mainly what I wanted to go over. So this is like light and dark. And then the next thing would be something like the detail. Now, let's say I'm just drawing a scene like this, or like just, yeah, like a sketch. It's a sketch of a scene. I probably want this is the most detailed. So I want everything to be sort of like the hierarchy of it. So the level of detail to the level of light and dark, like the contrast and stuff. Like there's no reason to have like maybe like this part of his foot be the most detailed. Like that doesn't make sense. So bring everything up like at the same time. So now that it starts to look like something, see, like this doesn't necessarily need to have a lot of shading. The shading could be as simple as, let's say, doubling up the line, or thick, like making the line like thickness. But that's like detail. Stuff like that is detail. Like that's literally detail. Same with kind of like this. Like, so there's the sketch right here. The light and dark is being established, meaning like light and then like shadow. But it doesn't mean like there's this rule that says everything like now must be a certain way. Since it is drawing, like you can make up a lot of stuff. Like this could very well be okay. Now, if you want to clean it up, if you will, like make it a little bit more clean, you can just double up on this side of the line width. But that's detail. But that's based upon the light and dark color scheme, or like the pattern. You can go back and kind of do this. And if you use the same pen, then it'll look more consistent. So I'm just choosing to use just this one right here. There's a level of like fine detail. You can go in with a finer pen, like a finer point, and then, but you may not have to. But that's really what I wanted to go over. So yeah, there's a lot of different ideas. I'm going to keep using this page, but that'll be it for today. I want to thank you for joining me for a daily sketching routine. And if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.